Well, howdy folks, Wade here, and welcome back to Wade's Old Ways. Walk into a chicken coop on a hot, still afternoon, and the first thing that hits you is not the heat. It is the air, thick, sharp, stinging in your nose. That same heavy, stale air settles into a closed-up bedroom in summer, into a back room that never gets a cross breeze. Hot and stale and not good to breathe. Today, I want to show you something that costs about $7, takes 15 minutes to put together, runs on nothing but water and a little moving air, and does two things at once. It cools the air coming into a space by a few degrees, and this is the part most folks do not know. It cleans that air at the same time, pulls the stink, the damp, the ammonia right out of it. It is the same material they put into the expensive air machines they sell for $300 and $400, doing the same job, sitting in a tray, for the price of a sandwich. It is charcoal, not the kind you cook with. A particular kind of charcoal, damp, with air moving across it. Let me start with the two things happening here, because it is really two tricks in one. The first trick is cooling. And it is the oldest cooling there is. Evaporation. You already know it in your own body. When you sweat and a breeze moves across your skin, you feel cool, because as that water evaporates, it carries heat away with it. Water cannot turn from wet into vapor without taking heat along when it goes. That is just the nature of it. So anytime you move air across a wet surface, the air comes out the other side a little cooler than it went in. That is why a wet sheet hung in a doorway cools the room behind it. Move air across wet, get cool. Simple, and it has been true since the beginning. Now the second trick, and this is what makes charcoal special. Charcoal, the right kind, is the most porous thing you will ever hold in your hand. A single small handful of it, if you could unfold all the little tunnels and pores inside it and lay them flat, would cover an area bigger than this whole room. It is riddled through and through with tiny passages like the most complicated sponge ever made. Two things come from all that surface. One, it holds a tremendous amount of water for its size, and gives that water up slowly as air moves through it. A wonderful wet surface for that evaporation cooling. And two, all those little passages grab hold of the bad things floating in the air. The smell, the ammonia, the damp, sour, stale compounds. The air moving through the charcoal does not just come out cooler, it comes out cleaner. The charcoal catches and holds the foulness as the air passes through. That is exactly why they put this same charcoal in water filters and in the expensive air machines folks pay hundreds of dollars for. You are getting both jobs, cooling and cleaning, out of one $7 tray. Now I have to be very plain about which charcoal, because if you get this wrong, you will waste your money and it will not work at all. You want what they call activated charcoal, sold as little loose black granules. You will find it cheapest in the pet section, sold for fish tank and aquarium filters. A bag runs about $5 to $8. You can also find it as horticultural charcoal for gardening, or the kind sold for air filters. Any of those is the right thing. Activated charcoal, that is the word to look for. What you must not use is charcoal briquettes for the grill. That is a completely different material. It is pressed together with binders. It is not riddled with all those little passages, and it will not cool or clean the air the way the activated kind does. Do not grab a bag of barbecue briquettes and expect this to work. It will not. Activated charcoal, loose black granules, that is the one. Now, here is the one real safety point, and I will not skip it because it matters. Damp charcoal in a wide open breezy space, a coop with its vents open, a room with the window open and air moving through, is perfectly safe. That is how you are meant to use it, and that is how all the good comes from it. But you must not seal a big bed of damp charcoal up in a small closed room with no air movement and then sit in there with the door shut. Wet charcoal in a sealed-up space can slowly pull oxygen down out of a stuffy, closed room because of how it works. The rule is simple, and it is the same rule that makes the whole thing work anyway. This is for spaces with AIR moving through them. Open window, open vent, cross breeze. A coop that breathes. Never a sealed, shut-up little room. Keep the air moving, which you want for the cooling regardless. And you are safe, and you are doing it right. Now, where this really earns its keep. A chicken coop in high summer is a hard place. Birds do not sweat the way we do. They cannot shed heat well, and heat troubles them badly. They start to suffer when it gets up into the high 80s in there, and it can turn deadly past 100. And on top of the heat, you have ammonia building up out of the litter, stinging in the air, hard on their lungs and their eyes. Picture a tray of damp charcoal set right in the vent opening of that coop where the air comes in. Every bit of air entering now passes through the damp charcoal first. It comes in a few degrees cooler from the evaporation, which matters a great deal to a panting bird, and it comes in with the ammonia and the stink pulled out of it because the charcoal grabs those compounds and holds them. The air your birds breathe is cooler and cleaner, both. For a coop in a heat wave, that is not a small thing. That is the difference between birds that suffer and birds that come through. Same idea for a rabbit hutch, a dog's kennel, a stuffy corner of the barn. Same idea for a sick room in the house where you want the air gentle and clean, and a touch cooler. Set the charcoal at the intake. Keep it damp, keep the air moving. Now I have to be honest with you about the cooling, because this is exactly where folks oversell it, and I will not. The cleaning, the pulling of smell and ammonia and damp out of the air, that works no matter what, wet climate or dry, and it works well. That is the strong, reliable part. But the cooling part depends on dry air. Evaporation only cools when the air has room to take on more moisture. In a dry climate, out west in the high plains, in dry heat, the air is thirsty. It pulls water off that charcoal fast and hard, and you get a real satisfying drop of several degrees, enough to feel plainly. But in the damp east, and worse, down along the Gulf and the humid south, the air is already half full of water on a muggy day. It cannot take much more off the charcoal, and the cooling is gentler, maybe a couple of degrees, not a dramatic plunge. So let me set your expectations honest. In dry country, this cools noticeably. In humid country, the cooling is modest, but the cleaning of the air works just the same everywhere. A $7 tray of charcoal will not cool your whole house like a machine in a Mississippi August. Anybody who tells you so is selling you something. What it will do everywhere is clean the air and take the edge off the heat at the spot where the air comes in. Know what it is for, and it will serve you. One more honest word about upkeep. The charcoal dries out. It works by being damp, so you re-wet it each morning, 30 seconds with a cup of water, or it is just a dry tray doing nothing. And after a month or two of catching smells, the charcoal fills up and slows down. But you do not throw it out. You spread it on a tray and set it in full sun for a good day. And the sun and heat drive the caught compounds back out of it and freshen it up ready to work again. One $7 bag, re-wet, daily and sunned now and then, lasts you the whole season. Now think about what you are sold to cool and clean your air. The air conditioner runs all summer, every summer, and you pay for every hour of it on the electric bill. The air cleaning machine sits in the corner, $300 or $400, and it wants a new filter every few months that you buy and buy again. And here is the quiet truth. The thing inside that expensive air machine that actually catches the smell and the bad air, it is this same activated charcoal. The very same material. They put it in a plastic housing, give it a brand name, and sell you a fresh one 4 times a year. You can buy the same charcoal loose by the bag for a few dollars, set it in a tray at your window, and freshen it in the sun for nothing. It is not a different secret. It is the same material with the expensive part, the housing, the brand, the recurring sale stripped off. That is why you have not heard of this. Not because it does not work. It works. But because there is no money in a bag of charcoal in a tray. Nobody can sell you a monthly filter for a tray you freshen in the sun. Nobody can put a brand on a window breeze. The knowledge is not hidden in a vault. It is just quiet because quiet does not sell. The expensive version shouts. The $7 version sits there and works. And only the people who never stopped using the simple things ever remember it is there. A person who can cool and clean the air for their family and their animals with a tray of charcoal, and the breeze through the window is a person who needs to ask no one's permission and pay no one's bill. Tell me in the comments, what are you going to set yours up in? The bedroom, the coop, the barn, the camper? And if you are down in the humid south, tell me what kind of drop you get, because I have told you to expect it gentle there, and I want to hear what you find. I read every single one. Thank you for being here today. If this was useful, hit that like button and subscribe to Wade's Old Ways. Until next time, keep the air moving, let the water and the charcoal do the work, and remember the people who built this country with their hands, new things we are only just starting to remember. This is Wade. See you soon.